What happened to the plant in math class? It grew square roots. Hey everyone, Joe Workman here, and in this video we're going to be looking at Pi and how we can use it to apply CSS to our pages. Pretty cool stuff. This is definitely some more advanced use cases for Pi, right? Because in this demo, we're going to be looking at demos 4 and 9 in the Pi demo on the product pages. And what that does is we're going to be modifying some text sizes, and then we're also going to be applying some custom colors and modifying some colors on the page. And that's all done with the power of Pi, right? This is definitely some more advanced use cases for Pi. And but let's see how fun it is. Let's jump on in and have a look. Okay, so here we are in the demo project that ships with Pi, and we're going to be looking at demo 4 first. Now, this particular demo is really simple in terms of the Pi input, right? We just have a simple number input that gives us a number. And the Pi, it actually doesn't do any formula. We just actually return the value from the font size number input. So, I mean, if we wanted, we could add some math into here. Maybe since this is pixels, we could divide it by 16, which returns the rem, right? But right now, I just want to do a one-to-one where this number input defines the pixel size of the font that we want. And then in Pi, we're going to apply that. So let's see how we do that. Inside Pi, if we look at the settings, there is a button here to enable CSS actions. Now, in order to use the CSS features of Pi, you're going to have to know a little bit about CSS. There's no way around it. You're going to have to know a little bit of CSS in order to use this. So hopefully you're aware of CSS. There's a lot of really great resources out there. Check our FAQs. I have some great links for you to check out. Next, so here in the CSS settings, we're going to want to put in a CSS selector. So here I use .pi-size. Now this is just Pi size is just a class that I came up of out of the blue because we're changing the size of something. And in CSS, we use a dot to represent that we actually are using a class. So the dot says, look for everything that has a class of Pi-size. Now, if you know anything about Foundation, its header stack allows us to provide a custom class. So inside the header stack, you can add custom class, and then you just put Pi-size. Now you don't put the period here, you just do the actual class name, which is Pi-size. And that's all we need to do for the selector because we have .pi-size that allows us to do the class of Pi size. So next we want to define our CSS property. And as we said, in this example, we want to modify the font size. And in order to modify the font size of something, the CSS property is actually font-size. And then we want to provide a CSS unit if we need to. So in this particular case, we want pixels because we're defining the number of pixels that we want our font size to be. And if you look inside Pi, inside edit mode, you'll see that we get a little bit of an idea of what the CSS selector will look like. It's going to do .pi-size, curly brace, font size, colon, and then this _pi_ is where it inserts the value, and then it does a px after that, right? So this is the kind of the CSS that's going to be applied to your page. So everything that has the Pi size class will now become 50 pixels. So here we are in demo 4, and if I click on this and we increase the number, we'll see that we can increase the font size. Obviously, we can change the number as well, and that will change the font size. And that's all done with Pi, right? So Pi is seeing that, oh, I see you changed it to 25. I'm going to apply the CSS rule to be font size 25 pixels. Now you might notice down here, there's a cool little button bar. And this basically, with cool little buttons, we can increase, decrease, and set it to predefined sizes. Pretty cool. Now this button bar has actually nothing to do with Pi. I just thought it would be a cool implementation. And basically what it is just a straight Foundation button bar that modifies the value inside the number box. And since we're modifying the value in the number input, Pi sees that and then changes the text, right? So it's just an interesting way, to kind of, have buttons to control the values instead of having to actually type in a value directly into the number input. Now, if you want to see how that's done, again, this has nothing to do with Pi at all. I just use some fancy JavaScript. So here in the button, if you look at the link, there's some really fancy JavaScript in here that it takes the name of the number input, right? Because I called it font size. The actual number form input is called font size. So it takes that and sets the value to be 25. So pretty simple. And then also this particular one is a little bit more advanced, the plus and minus, because it takes the current value that it has and increases it or decreases it by 1, right? But if you have this demo file, feel free to maybe, steal that little snippet of JavaScript that's in the link setting here and have fun. Again, that has nothing to do with Pi. It's just something cool that I thought would be interesting to add to the demo. So have fun with that. So the next demo that we're going to look at is demo 9, and this has to do with colors. Now this demo is really interesting. It's actually kind of an advanced demo of Pi. But what it does is it has 3 sliders that actually modify HSL values. HSL is a type of number input that is actually all numbers. It's kind of like RGB, right? You could probably do a similar setup here with RGB values, okay? But here we have the hue, and as you notice, as we change the hue, we can see the actual colors change here of the text. And then we can adjust the saturation and then the lightness, right? So really cool. Depending on these values, you can find almost any color that you want. Now this demo does other things, such as it actually converts that value to RGB into hex values. We're not going to dive into the details of that, but we'll glance over it a little bit. But we're curious in terms of how we're going to actually apply the CSS here. Okay, so here we are in edit mode to look at demo 9. And it's a little bit more complex than demo 4 that we just looked at, because we have 3 slider values, right, for hue, saturation, and lightness. And if you look at these pies, they're actually kind of crazy, right? If you notice, they all have some custom JavaScript functions that are quite complex. Now, there are 4 pies total for this. We have one that creates the HSL string that you see that's displayed on the page, another one for RGB, and another one for hex. All of these have their own custom JavaScript functions that take the values of the sliders and then convert them into the actual HSL string that you see. Now, I'm not going to be reviewing how to do custom functions in this particular video. We have a separate video on how to do custom functions and some more advanced things with Pi. But just know that these particular ones actually aren't required to do the CSS stuff, which is what we want to talk about in this video. So if we look at this very last Pi here, it's the most simple of this set. And I gave it a name of color HSL because it applies the HSL color value to our text. And if we look here in the Pi, I'm just doing an HSL string in CSS. So basically I'm creating HSL parenthesis, then I'm adding the hue, the saturation, I'm adding a percentage after the saturation, and then a lightness, and I'm adding a percentage sign after the lightness. Now notice that I'm actually putting this entire thing in double quotes because I want this to be a string. I don't want it to be a number. I don't want it to be evaluated as some sort of JavaScript function. I want this to be a string so that I'm encapsulating this all inside text, or all inside double quotes. Now, basically what we want now is we're going to do, just as we did in the previous example, I create a class here. I'm just going to call it Pi color text. And we have the dot here because I want to apply it to the class Pi color text. Now the CSS property for changing the font color is color. And then we don't need any units here because colors don't have units. So we just leave that blank. And if we look at the Pi here in edit mode, we'll see that we have dot Pi color text, curly brace, color, colon, and then Pi will insert the value that this formula generates into this here. Now, if you remember, inside the foundation header stack, we can easily apply a class to the header. Now, if you notice here, I actually have multiple classes defined inside this header because you can add more than one. Here I have Pi color text. Now this Pi HSL, is actually coming from this stack because this pi is using the class to actually inject the contents. So you could do multiple things here, right? So here we're applying the actual text value. So we're doing HSL colon and then the HSL color value. And then we're also applying the color all with a different class. So you can have as many classes as you want on something. Now, if we look at the other things such as RGB, here I have pi color text, and then I have another class of pi RGB. And classes, I should note, when you add them here, they're just separated by spaces. So you have class name, space, class name, space, class name, so on and so forth. Okay. And then on the hex one, I also have the pi color text, and then I have the pi hex because pi hex is going to be used by this pi called hex that inserts the hex value. And that's basically it. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. So here we have, we can adjust this, and because we have that pi color text class on this header, the color values are applied to each one of these. So there we have it. There are two really solid examples of how you can use pi to adjust CSS. Now, I do have to say, I only chose simple CSS selectors, right, with just a class, right? Most people can, kind of grok that example where you apply a class to something and then, that style is applied to a class. You can obviously do some more complicated selectors where you're doing, nested things, or if you want to apply CSS to something custom on the page, you're going to have to figure out that selector. Now, I have some videos on my YouTube channel that teach you how to use the dev inspector and how to find the selectors and all that jazz. So make sure that you go to the youtube.com/weaverspace and, you're probably there if you're watching this video, and search around for videos on how to, learn some, basics of CSS, how to use the dev inspector to help you figure out what those selectors are. Now, again, on our FAQs, I'm going to have some resources for, learning what CSS selectors are and maybe teaching you a little bit about what CSS properties are available. Head over to, most of those are probably going to link to w3schools.com. It's a great resource for learning how to do simple things like that. So that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoy Pi. I'm excited to see how you use this, right? I hope you don't do too crazy things, right? I mean, letting users just move all kinds of stuff around the page. I'd be interested to see how you use it. So I hope you enjoy Pi. I hope you're enjoying the power of it, and that we will see you on Weaverspace and post all the amazing things that you're doing with it. So make sure you share so that we all learn, we can all make things better, and I'd appreciate that as well. So take care. I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy Pi.